Hi, this is Steve Hosher with RazorGage, and today I'm going to talk about the RG3 software. This video is going to be an overview of the software features. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on each function. I'm just going to go through the whole thing so you have an idea of what it will do, and then there will be more detailed videos about the individual functions later. When you start up the software, it lands on this stop mode keypad screen. So the functionality of the RG3 software is separated into tabs here. On the right, you'll see stop mode, pusher mode, auto list, and settings. These are the four main modes. And then on each mode, we have tabs across the top. So in stop mode, we have keypad, which is where you just type in a length and a fraction and it'll go there. Presets, where you can define hotkeys. I just show one here, but you can have basically you can have a whole lot. Offsets, you can define a bunch of these where when you click this button, it will change the coordinate system. So shift everything by 3 or whatever you put in. For various functionality you may want to devise. List. Now we're in stop mode. We have a list tab in stop mode and one in pusher mode. The only difference is just when you run the list, here the razor gauge will behave as a stop, and when you're in pusher mode, it'll behave as a pusher. So in this screen, you create a list, and then you save the list if you want to, and run the list. Autocalc is a screen where you can define buttons, you can put math equations behind the buttons, and that equation can use the three variables at the top in its calculation. So in this example here, I have one button defined for a top rail of a cabinet door, and the equation is x minus y times 2 plus z times 2. So x is the width, the stile width is y. So to get the rail length, we need to take the overall width and subtract 2 times the stile width, and then add the cope depth times 2, because you got a tab on each end of the rail. So if I put in a door 24 and then click this button, it calculates the length of that top rail, and I could have a button for all kinds of things. So that's AutoCalc. So that's stop mode basically. Keypad, presets, offsets, list, and AutoCalc. Now we go to pusher mode. We've just got two screens. List, which is like before, you can create a list, save a list. If you want to save it, you don't have to. So you can create a list and run it, and you can multiply the quantities too. So if you have a bill of materials for a chair, let's say, and you want to make 10 chairs, you can multiply the quantities in that bill of materials times 10 and run it and get 10 chairs. And the next time you open it, it'll still have the original bill of material quantities, so you can multiply it again or just make one chair, whatever you want. Repeating pattern is like the old auto pusher screen from RGST. So what this is you can create a board, a run, a cut pattern based on a certain stock length. So let's say I've got a 96-inch stock. I want my load position to be 104 and a leading edge trim of 1 inch. Then I can start adding parts to this board down here. It displays it. So let's say I'm going to have some parts that are 16 and a quarter, and I click add, and if I want more than one, I just click add more than once. I've got 28 inches left. I don't need any more of these. Maybe I want a 24-inch part. And then now that I've created this, I can save it, run it over and over and over, or just run it if I don't need to save it. And so that's a real handy screen. So pusher mode, we have just straight up list where you just create a list and run it, or you can do this repeating pattern where it's more creating a cut pattern, a certain board with certain parts, and you can save and run. All right, AUTOLIST. Usually when you open a file in AUTOLIST, it sorts the file into groups and displays the current group, be the first group. What I mean by groups is, to explain that, I'm just going to click the Groups tab. Actually, I'll start with all parts. Here are all the parts in the whole list. But we're going to sort it into groups. For one thing, you usually want groups of like material type. So the way the groups are defined is in this grouping options. You can see we have grouped by tank material. And over here in the list of groups, it shows tank material, all the different kinds of tank material, the quantity of the parts in each one, and the number of inches required to cut all those parts. This length left column doesn't include kerfs or trims or anything. That's just the lengths all added up. So you'll need a little more material than that to actually cut that group, but it gets you close. And you can choose whatever group you want and select it, and it displays it. Now, I'll just show you real quick how this behaves if you change the grouping. So let's say we wanted to make more groups. We want the groups sorted into not just tank material, but we want to have like parts with like tank material and like component. And so we add component and save, and now we get a lot more groups with fewer parts in each group. So if I choose this one, these are parts that have the same component number and the same tank material. And our list changed too. It's got tank material and component listed instead of just the one. Now I'm going to change it back. And we're back to the number of groups we had before. So now any one of these groups will have parts with the same tank material but different components within that group. So that's how grouping works. Column display is pretty obvious. It just determines what columns are displayed and what order they're displayed. So okay, I've got original quantity, length, old material number, and file name. Let's say I want component to come over here by length. So I'll go to column display, click component, and move it up till it's right there by length. And now I can look at the group, and component is right by length. Now let's say I don't want to show component at all. I can select it and move it over here to the columns to hide and update it, and now that's not shown anymore. So that's column display. We've already looked at all parts. Cut history is a way you can see what you've run. You can restore parts back to the list that you've run earlier. So I can expand this. This was a board that was cut at this date and time. So here it shows the graphical depiction of the board with the parts that were cut out of it. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I click number 3, it shows the label, and I can restore it or reprint that label. Really neat. So that's cut history. And then printer is where you set up your labels. We have static fields and dynamic fields. The static fields those don't change. Whatever you put into the static field, that's going to be the same every part, every label. The fields are selected from fields in the cut list. So whatever value is in the old material column for a certain row, that's what's going to get displayed in the label. And you can preview the label right here. You can change the size, what kind of printer you have. You can enable or disable printing, change the font size, print a test label. So pretty good. We also have this custom label layout, which is very capable screen. You can create just about any kind of label you want. You can have fields with different font sizes. You can have pictures, QR codes, barcodes, just very customizable. That's you pay to enable this. It doesn't come with just the standard software. So okay, we've gone through AUTOLIST fairly thoroughly. Options. The Options tab controls how automatic operation is done. There are some certain behaviors you can enable or disable in the Options button. Another thing about AutoList is you can change it from pusher mode to stop mode. Right now it defaults to pusher because my I/O option is set to Razor Optimal, and I'll show you that here. We'll go to the settings screen, and this is password protected. The most important thing here is the check for updates. You can click the check for updates button if you're connected to the internet, and it will look online and see if there's an update available. So I'm not going to update right now, but that's how you do it. You can also show the change log, which shows all the changes that were made in all the update versions. And you can start a Splashtop session, which will give you a code you can email us or text us so that we can remote in and monkey around with the computer. Position, these are the settings, like this is the calibration settings, torque limits, things like that. This is also the calibration screen. Motion, these are the speeds for the different kinds of moves. You click what kind of move, and you can set the velocity in accel and decel. On optimals and system, what we call systems, basically the APS and the optimals, you can manually operate certain functions of the machine. So this is where you would go to do that. You would do this during setup or to troubleshoot or things like that. I/O, this is where we set the type of I/O option this machine is. You generally wouldn't be in here, but let's say you had a simple tool-safe machine. You had a positioner with tool-safe, and one day the tool-safe sensor quit working and you wanted to keep going without it. You could click no I/O and then it would ignore the tool-safe. So on the old machines, changing the I/O option was a big deal. But with this one, it's really easy. Inkjet printer, if you have a Razor Optimal and you have an inkjet printer, you can set it up here. You can do some testing, things like that. This is where you set up the Razor Array, again, for systems only. Here you can enable remote serial if you want to have a third-party software that you want to use. It can make the razor gauge, it can control the razor gauge remotely by using the remote serial option. These are secondary operations and then faults and versions. So on the main screen we have this little panel over here on the left where we have the position and the target position. The unload button backs the razor gauge positioner, backs it up so you can remove short parts that are close to the saw. Here it shows that we have that offset enabled that we talked about earlier. So I'll just click none and that'll go away. Move to low limit, move to high limit. Here is where you can change from inches to millimeters and back. This is just a status. This will show faults and show what status the machine is in as things are operating. So that's an overview of the RazorGage software. I hope you found this useful. Like I say, I didn't go into detail on a lot of things, but I'm going to do individual videos on some of these screens that could be helped by it. Some of them don't really merit having their own video, but I'll do some more videos that are more detailed on individual screens. So thanks for watching. I hope this helped, and have a great day.